My name is Maren Cole, and I am 29 years old. 3 weeks from now, I will stand in a courtroom and watch my father's face drain of color. I will watch my mother scream. I will watch two bailiffs tackle a man who once controlled an empire, pressing his designer suit into courthouse carpet while he shouts about knowing important people. But right now, in this moment I am about to describe, I know none of that. Right now, I am about to open an envelope that will change everything. The bailiff will read the list. Item 1, Item 2, routine numbers that make my parents' lawyer smile with satisfaction. Then Item 3. The judge will lean forward. His eyes will narrow. "Stop immediately," he will say, his voice cutting through the courtroom like a blade. "Get security in here. Now." My father will bolt from his chair, my mother will clutch her pearls and wail, and I will stand perfectly still, hands folded, heart calm, because I have been waiting 4 years for this moment. They thought they could silence me, they thought wrong, but I am getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it started. 3 weeks earlier, on a Tuesday morning, that began like any other. The coffee was brewing when the doorbell rang. I remember that detail because I was standing at the kitchen counter watching the dark liquid drip into the pot, thinking about nothing more complicated than whether I had time to review case files before my 9 o'clock meeting. My apartment in Northeast Portland caught the morning light beautifully at that hour. I had chosen it for that reason, among others. The way the sun came through the windows and made the plants on the sill glow green. The way the space felt like mine. Every corner earned. Every piece of furniture chosen with intention. I had built this life with my own hands. No trust fund, no family connections, just 4 years of working harder than anyone expected and saving every dollar I could spare. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. I set down my coffee cup and walked to the door, some instinct already whispering that this was not a delivery, not a neighbor, not anything routine. The man on the other side wore a dark suit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. He held a manila envelope like it contained something contagious. His eyes met mine, then slid away, settling somewhere around my collarbone. That was when I knew. He asked me to confirm my name, verify my address, sign on the line. His pen was heavy and expensive. The envelope passed from his hands to mine, and he turned and walked away without another word, like he wanted distance between himself and whatever I was about to read. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching him disappear down the stairs. Then I closed the door, walked to my kitchen table, and opened the envelope with hands that were not quite steady. The header stopped my breath. In the matter of the conservatorship of Maren Elizabeth Cole, petitioners Victor Cole and Claudia Cole. My parents. My own parents were petitioning the court to declare me incompetent. I read the words 3 times before they assembled into meaning. Pattern of emotional instability, financial immaturity, and reckless decision-making. Unable to manage personal affairs without risk of significant harm. They wanted control of everything. My bank accounts, my apartment, my car, my decisions. They wanted to put their 33-year-old daughter, a senior forensic accountant who specialized in catching fraud, under their legal guardianship like a child who could not be trusted with her own lunch money. I kept reading, each line worse than the last. My career choice described as evidence of poor judgment. My estrangement from family framed as isolation requiring intervention. My financial independence twisted into proof that I was wasting resources without proper guidance. And then, near the bottom of the petition, a phrase that made my blood run cold. Respondent may possess materials that could endanger herself and others. They were not just trying to control me, they were trying to find something specific. I set the papers down and looked around my apartment. At the bookshelf I had assembled myself, filled with novels and professional journals. At the peace lily on the windowsill that I had nursed from a struggling seedling into something thriving. At the framed photo of myself at my master's graduation, alone, smiling, free. This was my life, every inch of it earned. And they thought they could take it because they had money and lawyers and a lifetime of practice making their cruelty look like concern. 4 years ago, I walked away from the Cole family. I was 25, fresh out of graduate school, interning at my father's company because he insisted it would teach me the real world. It taught me something, all right. It taught me that the man I called father would look me in the eye and tell me that some questions were not meant to be asked, that some doors were meant to stay closed. I had found discrepancies in the accounting records, payments that did not match invoices, material orders that did not align with what arrived on job sites. I brought my concerns to him privately, professionally, thinking he would want to know. He told me I was seeing problems that did not exist. He told me to focus on learning rather than investigating. And when I pushed, just once, his eyes went flat and cold, and he said, "Your time at this company is finished, Maren. Go find somewhere else to play detective." I left that night, packed a single suitcase, drove to a studio apartment I could barely afford, and started building a life that did not depend on their approval or their money. I took nothing from them except the clothes on my back and a hard drive I copied on my last night in the office. I did not know what was on it. I just knew they were hiding something, and some instinct told me to keep a record. That hard drive had sat in my safe for 4 years. I opened it once, 6 months ago, finally ready to face whatever truth it contained. What I found explained everything. It explained why my father wanted me gone. It explained why my questions made him so afraid. And now, holding this petition, it explained why they had finally made their move. They knew I had it. They knew I could destroy them. And they were trying to destroy me first. I set the petition down and stood up. The fear I had expected to feel did not come. Instead, something else rose in its place. Something cold and clear and sharp. I was not the scared girl who ran away 4 years ago. I was a woman who had built her own life from nothing. A woman who caught fraud for a living. A woman who had evidence they thought was buried. I walked to my bedroom, opened my laptop, and began searching for a very specific kind of lawyer, someone who specialized in fighting predatory conservatorships, someone who understood that family could be the most dangerous enemy of all. I found her name in article after article. Diane Mercer, the woman who dismantled power grabs for a living. I picked up my phone and dialed her number. The line rang twice before someone answered. I did not know it yet, but I had just fired the first shot in a war my parents thought they had already won. The receptionist put me on hold for 30 seconds before a voice came on the line. Calm, measured, professional. Diane Mercer speaking. I explained my situation in 3 sentences, trying to keep my voice steady. Conservatorship petition filed by parents. I am financially stable, professionally successful, mentally sound. And there is more to this story than they want anyone to know. The silence on the other end lasted long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then Diane spoke again. I have handled cases like this before. The wealthy do not file conservatorships out of love. They file them for control. She scheduled me for an in-person consultation the following morning. Bring everything, she said. Bank statements, tax returns, employment records, anything that proves your competence. Her voice dropped slightly. And, Maren, bring whatever it is they are really after. I froze. How did she know there was something else? In my experience, she continued, these petitions always have a hidden target. See you tomorrow. The line went dead, and I stood in my kitchen holding a phone that suddenly felt heavier than it should. I spent the rest of that day gathering documents, but my mind kept drifting backward. To understand why my parents did this, you need to understand who they are. The Cole family looked perfect from the outside. My father, Victor Cole, built Cole Construction from a small contracting company into one of the largest construction firms in the Pacific Northwest. He was 61 years old, silver-haired, broad-shouldered, with the kind of commanding presence that made people stand straighter when he entered a room. Business magazines called him a visionary. Community leaders called him a philanthropist. His employees called him Sir, never by his first name, and they said it with a fear they tried to disguise as respect. Victor Cole did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Every word he spoke carried the weight of a man who had never been told no and could not imagine why anyone would start now. His love, if you could call it that, was transactional, loyalty purchased, not earned, affection measured in usefulness. He did not have children. He had investments. My mother Claudia was 58 and beautiful in the way that required constant maintenance. She had been born into a modest family and married her way up, and she never let anyone forget the distance she had climbed. Her role in the Cole household was clear. Victor made the decisions, and Claudia made them look elegant. She chaired charity committees, hosted galas, cultivated the right friendships. Her smile was always perfect, her outfits always appropriate, her opinions always calibrated to reflect well on the family. She was not cruel in the obvious ways my father could be. Her cruelty was softer, wrapped in concern, delivered with a sympathetic tilt of the head. "I am just worried about you, darling. You seem so lost." She made disappointment feel like love, and love feel like something you had to earn by being someone other than yourself. Our family home sat in Willow Heights, a gated community where every lawn was manicured, and every family had secrets they paid good money to keep hidden. 6 bedrooms, 3-car garage, a pool we rarely used, and walls that absorbed sound so efficiently that you could scream and no one outside would ever know. Then there was Sloane, my sister, 3 years younger, and everything I was supposed to be. Sloane had learned early how to play my parents' game. She mirrored their ambitions, echoed their opinions, laughed at their jokes, and was rewarded with their approval. She went to the college they chose, studied the major they suggested, and walked straight from graduation into a marketing position at Cole Construction, where she reported to our father and told him exactly what he wanted to hear. Sloane was not stupid. She was strategic. She understood that in our family, independence was rebellion, and rebellion was punished. So she made herself indispensable, the perfect daughter, the golden child. We shared a bedroom growing up, whispered secrets in the dark, built blanket forts, and dreamed about the future. That Sloane felt like a different person now, someone I used to know before our paths diverged so completely that we became strangers wearing the faces of sisters. The last real conversation we had was 4 years ago, the night I left. She stood in my childhood bedroom doorway, watching me pack. "You are making a mistake," she said. "They will never forgive you." I looked at her, at the carefully neutral expression she had learned to wear like armor, and said, "I am not asking for forgiveness." She did not call after I left, not once in 4 years, until now when she had something to gain by reaching out. The breaking point happened when I was 25. I had just finished my MBA and was interning at Cole Construction, assigned to the accounting department because my father thought it would bore me into switching to something more useful, like management. Instead, I excelled. Numbers made sense to me in a way people never quite did. Clean, logical, honest. Except the numbers at Cole Construction were not honest. I found discrepancies almost immediately. Invoices that did not match purchase orders. Payments to vendors that did not appear in any database. Project budgets inflated by 15 or 20% with no clear explanation. One project kept appearing in the irregularities. The Westfield Bridge renovation. I cross-referenced material orders with delivery receipts. The gaps were staggering. Grade 60 rebar ordered, but internal memos referenced grade 40 being delivered. Premium concrete specified in contracts, but standard mix noted in site reports. Someone was substituting cheaper materials and pocketing the difference. I brought my findings to my father, privately, professionally, thinking he would want to know. His face went still when I showed him the documents. His eyes, always cold, turned to ice. "You are seeing problems that do not exist," he said. "Some doors are meant to stay closed, Maren. Close this one." That was not advice. That was a command. The next morning, my office computer had been upgraded without my knowledge, and all the files I had been reviewing were gone. My access to the financial archives was revoked. HR called to inform me that my internship was ending early due to restructuring. That night I stayed late, used credentials that had not yet been deactivated, and copied everything I could find onto an external hard drive. I did not know exactly what I was taking. I just knew that whatever my father was hiding, I needed a record of it. I drove away the next morning and did not look back. 6 months later, a headline appeared in the Portland Tribune. Westfield Bridge collapse. 3 construction workers dead. I remember reading it in my studio apartment, coffee going cold in my hands. The official investigation concluded it was unforeseen material fatigue. Coal construction was cleared of any negligence. Settlements were paid quietly, quickly, sealed. My father gave a statement expressing deep sympathy for the families, and I sat alone, knowing in my gut that those 3 men had died because of the discrepancies I had found, the questions I had asked, the door my father had slammed in my face. I never opened the hard drive. Not then. I was too scared, too uncertain, too focused on surviving my new life to confront the weight of what I might have carried with me. But 4 years later, 6 months before that petition arrived at my door, I finally found the courage. What I saw confirmed everything I had feared. Financial records showing systematic fraud, material substitutions across multiple projects, emails between my father and his CFO discussing how to keep the paper clean, and a direct connection to the Westfield Bridge, to the substandard materials, to the 3 men who fell to their deaths because someone decided their lives were worth less than profit margins. I closed the files and sat in silence for a long time. Now, holding the conservatorship petition, I understood. This was never about protecting me. This was about silencing me. They knew I had the evidence. They knew I could destroy everything my father had built. And they were trying to take control of my life before I could use it. I walked to my bedroom closet, knelt before the small safe hidden behind a false panel, and entered the combination. The door swung open. The hard drive sat there, black and ordinary, containing everything. Tonight, I would read through every file again. Tomorrow, I would meet Diane Mercer and tell her the truth. And whatever came after, I would face it standing up. They had 4 years to find me, to silence me, to make this go away. They waited too long. Now it was my turn. The safe opened with a soft click that sounded louder than it should in the silence of my bedroom. The hard drive sat where I had left it months ago, black plastic shell holding secrets that had cost 3 men their lives. I lifted it carefully, as if it might shatter, and carried it to my bed where my laptop waited. The evening light was fading outside my window, casting long shadows across the room. I connected the drive, watched the files populate across my screen, and felt my forensic accountant training take over. Whatever I was about to see, I would see it clearly. No more running. No more pretending I did not know. The folder structure was exactly as I remembered from my brief look 6 months ago. Projects organized by name and date, financial records, internal communications. Hundreds of documents I had copied in a panic 4 years ago without understanding what they contained. I clicked on the folder labeled Westfield Bridge Renovation and began to read. The invoice discrepancies were worse than I remembered. Pacific Steel Supply had billed coal construction for 400 tons of grade 60 rebar, the high-strength steel required for bridge load-bearing structures. Delivery receipts confirmed 400 tons received, but an internal memo from the site manager told a different story. Only 280 tons delivered, it read, remainder substituted with grade 40 per directive. Grade 40 was cheaper, weaker, never intended for the stresses a bridge would face. Someone had ordered the substitution, pocketed the difference, and documented it like it was routine business. I kept scrolling, my stomach tightening with each new file. The original contract with the Portland Department of Transportation specified premium concrete mix for all structural elements, but the internal version had a handwritten note scrawled in the margin. Use standard mix, pocket difference. The handwriting was familiar. I had seen it on birthday cards, on notes left on the kitchen counter, on documents I had filed as an intern. The initials at the bottom confirmed what I already knew. VC Victor Cole. My father had personally authorized cutting corners on a public bridge. The money trail was meticulous, which made sense. My father was nothing if not organized in his corruption. A spreadsheet tracked what he called cost savings across multiple projects. Westfield Bridge showed $847,000 in savings. But nowhere did the client billing reflect reduced costs. The difference had vanished into shell company payments, accounts that existed only on paper. I found emails between my father and Raymond Husk, the company CFO, discussing the arrangements. The subject line was simply, Westfield margins. Keep the paper clean, my father had written. Inspectors see what we show them. Raymond's response was 2 words. Understood. Documentation adjusted. The email was dated 3 months before the bridge collapsed. 3 months before 3 men fell to their deaths because the steel beneath their feet was not strong enough to hold them. I pushed back from my laptop, suddenly unable to breathe. This was not accounting error. This was not miscommunication or oversight. This was deliberate fraud, documented in my father's own words, with full knowledge of the risks. I forced myself to keep reading. A folder labeled Incident Response Confidential contained the internal engineering assessment, completed 2 days after the collapse. The conclusion was damning. Structural failure consistent with material underperformance. The recommendation was even worse. Conduct full material audit across all active projects. But someone had written across the page in red ink, the letters thick and angry. Bury this. The initials were the same. VC. Below the assessment, I found the incident report listing the 3 men who died. Miguel Delgado, 43 years old, structural welder, married with 2 children. Jerome Patterson, 38, safety inspector, single, supported his elderly mother. David Chen, 29, junior engineer, engaged to be married. They were on the bridge section when it gave way. They fell because the steel was not strong enough. They died because my father decided their lives were worth less than $847,000. The external investigation report told a different story, of course. Unforeseen material fatigue, it concluded, with no mention of substituted materials or ignored warnings. The investigating firm, I noticed, was a regular contractor for coal construction. The conflict of interest was obvious to anyone who cared to look. No one had cared to look. The settlement agreements made me sick. $50,000 to each family in exchange for their silence. Non-disclosure agreements that prohibited any public discussion of the accident, any legal action, any contact with media. The families had been pressured, isolated, given weeks to decide. Sign this or get nothing. Your husband is already gone. Your son is already gone. Do you really want to spend years in court, fighting a company with unlimited legal resources? They signed. Of course they signed. They were grieving and scared and alone. And my father's lawyers knew exactly how to exploit that. I closed the laptop and sat in the darkness of my bedroom, listening to my own heartbeat. I had evidence of fraud, manslaughter, obstruction of justice. I had proof that my father was a murderer in everything but legal terminology. And I had a petition sitting on my kitchen table trying to take away my right to do anything about it. My phone buzzed, startling me, a new email notification. The sender was an encrypted address I did not recognize, a string of random characters. The subject line made my heart stop. You are not the only one who knows. I opened the message with trembling fingers. The text was brief and precise. I know what you have. I know what coal construction did to Westfield. They buried the truth. They buried the people who asked questions. I was one of those people. I survived. Barely. If you are planning to fight, you will need more than files. Meet me if you want the full picture. Public place. Your choice. It was signed simply, a former believer. I stared at the screen for a long time. Someone else knew. Someone who had been inside the company, who had asked questions, who had survived. The phrase buried the people who asked questions echoed in my mind. How many others had tried to expose this? How many had been silenced? I did not reply. Not yet. First, I needed to meet Diane Mercer. Then I would decide whether to trust this stranger. Her office was downtown, 10th floor of a modern building with glass walls and a view of the Willamette River. Everything about it was different from the wood-paneled, cigar-scented law firms my father frequented. Clean lines, efficient design, no pretense. Diane Mercer rose to greet me when I entered. She was in her early 50s, silver streaks in her dark hair, sharp gray eyes that missed nothing. Her handshake was firm, her expression neutral. She wore a simple black blazer, no jewelry except a practical watch. I liked her immediately. We sat at her conference table, and I presented everything I had brought: bank statements, credit reports, employment records, tax returns. She reviewed each document carefully, nodding at the obvious evidence of my competence. "On paper, their case is absurd," she said finally. "You are clearly capable of managing your own affairs, which means this is not about capability." She looked at me directly. "What are they really after?" I hesitated for only a moment. Then I placed the hard drive on her desk. I told her everything. The internship, the discrepancies, my father's warning, my departure, the files I copied, the collapse, the cover-up. She listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When I finished, she picked up the hard drive and turned it over in her hands, as if weighing its contents. "This is not just a conservatorship defense anymore," she said quietly. "This is evidence of criminal fraud and negligent homicide. If this goes public, your father faces prison. They know you have it. That is why they filed." I nodded. I had reached the same conclusion. Diane set the drive down and met my eyes. "You need to understand what you are holding. This makes you dangerous to very powerful people. They will not just fight you in court, they will fight dirty. Surveillance, intimidation, maybe worse." She paused. "Are you prepared for that?" I thought of Miguel Delgado, Jerome Patterson, David Chen. I thought of their families, silenced with $50,000 and a piece of paper. I thought of my father writing "Bury this" in red ink. "I did not survive 4 years of silence to stay quiet now," I said. "We go to war." Diane nodded slowly, something like respect flickering in her eyes. "Then we need more than files. We need witnesses." I remembered the anonymous email still waiting for a response. I might know where to find one. The black sedan appeared on Tuesday morning. I noticed it as I left my apartment building, walking toward the parking garage across the street. It sat at the corner, engine running, windows tinted so dark I could not see inside. I had never seen it parked there before. I told myself it was nothing, a coincidence, someone waiting to pick up a friend. But something in my gut disagreed, and 4 years of living on guard had taught me to trust that instinct. I kept walking, kept my pace steady, did not look back. The parking garage was dim and cool, my footsteps echoing off concrete walls. I reached my Honda on level 2 and was unlocking the door when I caught movement in my peripheral vision. A shadow near the stairwell, there and then gone. I turned quickly, keys clutched in my fist, heart hammering. Nothing, just empty parking spaces and fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. But the feeling remained, pressing against my skin like humidity before a storm. Someone was watching me. I drove to work with my eyes fixed on the rearview mirror as much as the road ahead. The black sedan pulled out of its parking spot when I did, settling 3 cars behind me. I changed lanes. It changed lanes. I took an unexpected turn onto a side street. The sedan continued straight, disappearing around the corner. Coincidence, I told myself again. But my hands were shaking on the steering wheel, and Diane's warning echoed in my mind. Surveillance, intimidation, maybe worse. They knew I was preparing something. They were letting me know they were watching. The message was clear. Back off, or face consequences. I tightened my grip and kept driving. I had come too far to be frightened into silence now. At work, I struggled to focus. Cases blurred together on my screen, numbers refusing to resolve into meaning. My thoughts kept returning to the anonymous email. Meet me if you want the full picture. The sender could be an ally with crucial information, or a trap set by my father's people. There was only one way to find out. During my lunch break, I stepped outside and called Diane. I explained the situation, the email, the risk, the potential reward. She listened without interrupting. "Public place," she said finally. "Daylight. Tell someone where you are going. If this person is real, they could be the witness we need. If it is a trap, at least you will know how far they are willing to go." I thanked her and ended the call, then opened my email and typed a response before I could second-guess myself. "Tomorrow, 2 in the afternoon, Riverside Coffee on Hawthorne. I will be wearing a gray coat. Come alone. I will too." I hit send and watched the message disappear into the digital void. The reply came within minutes, just 4 words that made my pulse quicken. "I will find you." Whoever this person was, they had been waiting. Watching. Ready to meet the moment I reached out. That should have frightened me more than it did. Riverside Coffee was exactly the kind of place I needed. Busy, public, full of witnesses. Large windows let in afternoon light, and the constant hum of conversation provided cover for any discussion I might need to have. I arrived 15 minutes early, took a corner table with clear sightlines to both the entrance and the emergency exit, and ordered a black coffee I had no intention of drinking. The minutes crawled past. I watched every person who entered, measuring them against the faceless sender of that encrypted email. Young couples holding hands, students hunched over laptops, an elderly man reading a newspaper. None of them seemed to be looking for me. At 3 minutes past 2, the door opened and a man walked in. Late 40s, weathered face, graying stubble, a slight limp in his left leg. He scanned the room with the methodical precision of someone trained to assess threats quickly. His eyes found me, recognition flickering in them, and he walked toward my table without hesitation. He stood there for a moment, not sitting, studying my face like he was confirming something he already knew. Marin Cole. It was not a question. "And you are?" "Marcus Webb. I used to work for your father." He paused, and something in his expression shifted. "I was on Westfield Bridge the day it collapsed." He sat across from me, folding his hands on the table. I noticed the scars immediately. Burn marks on his knuckles, surgical scars running up his forearms. His left leg was stiff beneath the table, a metal brace visible under his jeans. This was a man who had paid a physical price for something. His eyes were tired but sharp, the eyes of someone who had seen too much and learned to stop expecting anyone to believe him. "You have files," he said quietly. "I saw you copy them 4 years ago." I stared at him, shock freezing the questions in my throat. He continued before I could speak. "I was working late that night, security camera in the server room. I saw you downloading everything you could find onto an external drive. I erased the footage so no one else would know." The room seemed to tilt around me. He had known for 4 years. He had protected me without my knowledge, hidden my theft from the people who would have destroyed me for it. Why? The word came out barely above a whisper. "Because I hoped someday you would use them." He leaned back, and I saw the weight he carried in the set of his shoulders. "I have been waiting to see if you had the courage." Marcus told me his story in pieces, each fragment adding to a picture I had only glimpsed from the outside. He had been a senior structural engineer at Cole Construction for 15 years. Trusted employee, believed in the work, believed in the company. When he was assigned as lead engineer on the Westfield Bridge renovation, he thought it was recognition of his dedication. Then the materials started arriving. The deliveries did not match the specifications he had approved. Rebar grades were wrong, concrete mixes were substandard. He reported his concerns to the project manager and was told to stay in his lane. He escalated to Raymond Husk, the CFO, and received the same dismissal wrapped in corporate politeness. He wrote a formal memo documenting every discrepancy, every risk, every potential failure point. The memo disappeared. That was when he understood. This was not oversight or miscommunication. This was policy. Cutting corners was how Cole Construction maintained its profit margins, and anyone who objected was removed. The day of the collapse, Marcus was on the bridge section inspecting welds. He felt the vibration first, a deep wrongness in the steel beneath his feet. He shouted a warning, started running. The section buckled, metal screaming, and he fell 20 feet onto scaffolding below. Broken leg, cracked ribs, burns from sparking cables. He woke up in the hospital 3 days later, and the first thing he saw was the news. Westfield Bridge collapse, 3 workers dead. The 3 men who died were his colleagues, his friends. Miguel Delgado, the best welder he had ever worked with. Jerome Patterson, the safety inspector who actually cared about safety. David Chen, the young engineer who was supposed to get married that summer. They were standing where Marcus had been standing moments before. 5 feet. That was the difference. 5 feet farther from the break point, and Marcus survived while they fell. He carried that distance like a wound that would never heal. While he was still recovering, Cole Construction sent visitors. HR representatives with forms and offers. Full severance, complete medical coverage, pension boost. All he had to do was sign an agreement never to discuss Westfield publicly. Marcus refused. 2 weeks after he returned to work, he was fired for performance issues. His medical coverage was terminated. His pension was contested in court, a battle he was still fighting. No engineering firm in the Pacific Northwest would hire him. "My father does not just silence people," Marcus said, his voice flat and hard. "He erases them." He told me about Miguel, the man who had noticed the steel was wrong and said so the night before he died. About Jerome, who filed 3 safety reports that month, all of which vanished. About David, the youngest on the team, who should have been planning his wedding instead of plummeting to his death. These were not just names in a report. They were men with families, futures, morning coffees, and evening dinners. They died because my father decided profit mattered more than their lives, and for 5 years Marcus had been trying to make his survival mean something. "Alone, my evidence is not enough," he said. "They have had 5 years to build walls, but combined with what you have, the financial records, Victor's signatures, the emails, together we can tear those walls down." I looked at this broken man, scarred and limping and still fighting. He had protected me without knowing me. He had waited years for someone with the courage to stand up. "I have a lawyer," I said. "We are building a case." His eyes lit with something that might have been hope. "Then let me help, let me testify, let me say their names in a courtroom where my father cannot erase them." I reached across the table and shook his scarred hand. "Welcome to the war." Before we left, Marcus leaned close, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "They have been following me for 3 years. Cars, sometimes people on foot. If you saw a black sedan near your apartment, that is not coincidence. From now on, assume nothing is private. Assume everything you say and do is being watched." I thought of the sedan that morning, the shadow in the parking garage, the feeling of eyes on my skin. I nodded slowly. "I understand." We exchanged contact information using encrypted apps he recommended, then left separately, 5 minutes apart. I drove home the long way, watching my mirrors, taking random turns. No sedan appeared, but that meant nothing. They did not need to follow me every moment. They just needed me to know they could. My apartment building appeared ahead, ordinary and safe in the late afternoon light. I parked across the street and walked toward the entrance, keys in hand, mind still processing everything Marcus had told me. I climbed the stairs to my floor, rounded the corner to my door, and stopped. The door was ajar. Not by much, 2 inches, maybe less. But I always locked it. Always. I never forgot. I stood frozen, staring at the thin strip of darkness visible through the gap. Scratch marks surrounded the keyhole, fresh gouges in the metal plate. Someone had been inside. I pushed the door open slowly, using my elbow to avoid smudging any fingerprints that might remain on the surface. The living room revealed itself in stages as the door swung wider. Drawers pulled open, contents scattered across the floor. Couch cushions displaced, thrown aside like afterthoughts. Papers from my home office spread across every surface, some crumpled, some torn. The violation hit me like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs. This was my sanctuary, the space I had built piece by piece over 4 years. Now it looked like a crime scene, which I supposed it was. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, heart pounding, listening for any sound that might indicate the intruders were still inside. Silence. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant noise of traffic outside. They were gone. But they had left their message written in chaos across everything I owned. I moved through the apartment carefully, cataloging the damage without touching anything. Kitchen cabinets hung open, containers shifted and examined. The bathroom medicine cabinet had been searched, bottles rearranged. My bedroom was the worst. Closet doors thrown wide, clothes pushed aside, shoeboxes emptied onto the carpet. They had been thorough, methodical, professional. This was not random vandalism or opportunistic theft. They knew what they were looking for. My television still hung on the wall. My laptop sat untouched on the kitchen table. They had not taken electronics or valuables. They had been searching for something specific, and the realization of what that something was made my pulse race even faster. The closet floor, the false panel, the safe. I knelt down, pushing aside scattered clothing, and felt along the baseboard until my fingers found the hidden latch. The panel swung open. The safe sat exactly where I had left it, combination lock untouched, door still sealed. They had not found it. Relief flooded through me, so intense it made me dizzy. They had torn apart my entire apartment, but they had missed the one thing that mattered. I opened the safe with trembling hands and pulled out the hard drive. Still there, still intact. Evidence of my father's crimes, still in my possession. But for how long? They would come back. They would keep looking until they found what they wanted. I needed to move this somewhere safe, somewhere they could not reach. First, though, I needed documentation. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, my voice steadier than I expected as I reported a break-in at my address. The dispatcher told me an officer would arrive within 30 minutes and instructed me not to touch anything. I sat on my violated couch and waited, the hard drive clutched against my chest like a lifeline. Officer Daniels arrived 27 minutes later. He was professional, sympathetic, thorough in the way police are when they know they probably will not solve a case, but want to do their jobs correctly anyway. He photographed the damage, dusted for fingerprints, documented everything with careful notes. I could not tell him the full truth. I said I was in a legal dispute with family members, which was technically accurate. I mentioned the conservatorship case without explaining the criminal evidence that made me a target. He nodded, asked follow-up questions, jotted down my vague answers without pressing for details I was not willing to share. "Looks professional," he said finally, surveying the systematic chaos. They knew what they were doing, no forced entry on the building itself, which means they either had a key or tailgated someone through the front door. He handed me a case number and a victim services card. "The security cameras in your lobby might have caught something," he added, but his tone suggested he did not expect much. These people knew how to be invisible. After he left, I sat alone in my ransacked apartment, understanding with perfect clarity that the police could not protect me from this. This was family business. It would be handled within the family, one way or another. I called Diane immediately. She listened to my account of the break-in without interrupting, then issued instructions with the calm authority of someone who had seen this before. "Bring the hard drive to my office first thing tomorrow morning. We have a secure safe." She paused. "Make copies tonight. Multiple copies, different locations. If they find one, the others survive." I spent the next 2 hours following her instructions. One copy uploaded to encrypted cloud storage, the password known only to me. One copy transferred to a USB drive that I hid in a compartment under my car's spare tire. The original would go to Diane's office in the morning. I packed an overnight bag with essentials and booked a hotel room downtown, paying cash under a name that was not quite mine. Paranoid, maybe. But Marcus had warned me, and the scratch marks on my door proved he was right. Nothing was private anymore. Everything I said and did was being watched. I texted Marcus from my encrypted app. They searched my place. Evidence is secure. Escalating. His reply came within minutes. Expected. Stay mobile. We meet tomorrow. I checked into the hotel, double-locked the door, and tried to convince my racing mind to let me sleep. The phone rang at 9:47. I stared at the screen, at the name that appeared there, at the contact I had not spoken to in 4 years. Sloane Cole, my sister. My stomach tightened as I answered, holding the phone to my ear without speaking. Sloane's voice poured through, sweet and concerned and perfectly calibrated. "Marin, oh my God, I just heard what happened. Mom told me about the break-in. Are you okay?" I processed her words slowly, each one landing like a stone in still water. Claudia knew about the break-in. The police report was filed 3 hours ago. Word traveled fast in the Cole network. "I have been so worried about you," Sloane continued, filling my silence with her rehearsed concern. "We all have. I know things have been difficult between us, but family is family, right? I just wanted to make sure you are safe." Every word sounded scripted. Every pause felt calculated. I recognized the performance because I had grown up watching our mother perfect it. Sloane had learned well. "Where are you staying tonight?" she asked, her voice dropping into something that was supposed to sound intimate and sisterly. "I could come over, we could talk, catch up. It has been so long." I kept my responses vague, my tone neutral. "I am fine, just shaken up, staying with a friend." But Sloane was not finished. She kept probing, her questions casual on the surface but pointed underneath. "Do you need anything? Money? A place to stay? I heard you have been seeing a lawyer. Is everything okay with your finances?" And then, slipped in like a knife between ribs, her real purpose revealed. Did they take anything important? Any old files or work stuff? There it was. The question she had been building toward all along. The reason for this sudden concern after 4 years of silence. She was fishing for information. She wanted to know if the evidence was still in my possession, or if the break-in had succeeded. I did not give her the satisfaction. "They took some electronics," I said carefully. "Nothing important." She made sympathetic sounds, but I could hear the frustration beneath them. She had not gotten what she came for. "Well, if you need anything, I am here," she said finally. "We are all here. Maybe we could get coffee sometime. Catch up?" "I miss you, Marin. I really do." The line went dead, and I sat in the anonymous hotel room, the phone still warm in my hand. 4 years of silence. And now this. Not because Sloane missed me. Not because she cared about my well-being. Because our parents had sent her to gather intelligence. The sister I had shared a bedroom with, whispered secrets to, built blanket forts with, was now a weapon aimed at my destruction. I should have felt surprised, but I did not. I should have felt betrayed, but that would require believing she had ever truly been on my side. The Sloane I remembered from childhood was gone, replaced by someone who had chosen inheritance over sisterhood, approval over integrity. She had made her choice 4 years ago when she watched me pack and warned me they would never forgive me. Now she was proving exactly which side she stood on. They had sent my sister to spy on me. They had broken into my home. They had threatened me through lawyers and surveillance and violated sanctuaries. But they had failed to find what they were looking for, and they had failed to frighten me into submission. I opened my laptop and searched a name I had seen in the files. Rosa Delgado, Miguel's widow. Another person silenced by Cole Construction. Another potential witness. I found an address in southeast Portland, a modest neighborhood far from the glass towers where my father made his deals. Tomorrow I would find her. They had sent my sister to spy on me, so I would find the people they had paid to forget. And I would help them remember. The neighborhood changed as we drove deeper into southeast Portland. Trendy coffee shops gave way to auto repair shops, then to small homes with chain-link fences and yards that showed the wear of lives lived paycheck to paycheck. Marcus sat in the passenger seat, quiet, his scarred hands resting on his knees. He knew where we were going. He had been here before, years ago, to attend a funeral for a man who should not have died. Rosa Delgado's house appeared at the end of a quiet street. A small bungalow with peeling paint and a garden that had once been loved, but now struggled against neglect. An American flag hung faded on the small porch. This was where $50,000 of silence money ended up. This was the price Cole Construction had paid to bury the truth along with the dead. I parked across the street and sat for a moment, gathering my thoughts. 5 years Rosa had lived here without her husband. 5 years of grief compounded by a piece of paper that told her she could never speak his name in connection with the truth of how he died. She might not want to talk, Marcus said quietly. The NDA scared her. They threatened to take back the settlement money if she violated it. For someone with nothing, $50,000 is everything and nothing at the same time. I nodded, understanding. She had signed under duress, grieving and alone, pressured by lawyers who knew exactly how to exploit her vulnerability. But she deserved to know there might be another way. We got out of the car and walked to the gate. Marcus limped beside me, his injuries a silent testament to what Cole Construction had done. The doorbell echoed inside the house, and we waited in the light drizzle that had started to fall. A curtain moved in the front window. Someone was watching, deciding whether to answer. Then the door opened slowly, just a few inches, and a woman peered out at us with eyes that held too much sorrow and not enough trust. Rosa Delgado was in her mid-50s, small-framed with gray streaking through black hair that had probably once been vibrant. She wore a worn cardigan and house slippers, rosary beads wrapped around her wrist. Her face showed the particular weariness of someone who had cried too much for too long and now held tears in permanent reserve. When she saw Marcus, recognition flickered in her expression. Marcus Webb. Her voice was soft, accented with years in America, but roots still reaching back to Oaxaca. I remember you from the funeral. Marcus nodded. I remember you too, Rosa. I am sorry I have not come sooner. Her eyes moved to me and the wariness returned. Suspicion hardened her features. Who is she? Marcus glanced at me, and I knew this was my moment to earn trust or lose it entirely. This is Marin Cole, he said. Rosa's face changed immediately. The name hit her like a slap. She stepped back, hand moving to the door as if to slam it shut. Cole? You are one of them? I spoke quickly, before she could disappear behind that door and the walls she had built around her grief. Victor Cole is my father, but I am not here for him. I am here because of what he did, to Miguel, to you, to all of us. She studied my face for a long moment, searching for lies or hidden motives. Then she looked at Marcus. You trust her? He nodded slowly. She has evidence, Rosa. Real evidence. She is fighting them. The silence stretched, broken only by the sound of rain dripping from the porch eaves. Finally, Rosa stepped aside. Come in, but I cannot promise anything. The living room was small and immaculately clean, despite the age of the furniture. Plastic covers protected the couch. Religious icons hung on every wall. The Virgin of Guadalupe watched from above the television, surrounded by crucifixes and images of saints. But what drew my attention was the corner dedicated to Miguel, a shrine built from love and loss. His photograph dominated the space, a large framed image of a man in work clothes, hard hat tucked under his arm, broad smile lighting up his face. Candles surrounded the photo, some burned down to stubs, others fresh. Artificial flowers added color that real ones could not sustain. His wedding ring sat in a small glass box, catching the dim light. A laminated newspaper clipping hung beside the frame. Westfield Bridge collapse, 3 workers dead. The edges were worn from touching. Other photographs covered nearby shelves. Miguel and Rosa on their wedding day, 30 years younger, full of hope. 2 children, a daughter in a graduation gown, a son in military uniform, grandchildren, 3 of them, young faces that would never know their grandfather. A family that continued without its patriarch, shaped forever by his absence. My children do not visit much, Rosa said quietly, following my gaze. Too painful, they say. My daughter blames me for signing the paper. My son says I should have fought. They do not understand. She sat down in a chair facing the shrine, gesturing for us to take the couch. I had nothing to fight with. I took my seat, acutely aware that I was sitting in a space built entirely around grief. Rosa began speaking without prompting, as if she had been waiting years for someone willing to listen. The day of the collapse, I was home making lunch. A phone call from a number I did not recognize. A voice telling me there had been an accident. I drove to the hospital, but Miguel was already gone. They would not let me see him. They said it was better that way. The funeral was paid for by Cole Construction, a generous gesture, everyone said. Then the lawyers came. 3 of them, expensive suits, sitting right where you are now. They offered $50,000, immediate payment. All I had to do was sign an agreement never to discuss the accident publicly. I asked for time. They said it was a one-time offer. Take it or get nothing. Rosa's hands twisted the rosary beads, fingers moving along the familiar pattern. I had no savings. Miguel was our only income. The mortgage was 3 months behind. His mother needed medical care. The lawyer looked at me and said, "This is your only chance. Your husband is already gone. Do you want to spend years in court, fighting a company with unlimited resources?" I signed on day 3. I needed to bury my husband. I needed to feed my family. Every day since, I wake up and hate myself a little more. They bought my silence for the price of a used car. Miguel deserved better. The truth deserved better. But I was scared and alone, and they knew exactly how to use that against me. She rose from her chair and disappeared into the bedroom, returning with a manila folder clutched to her chest. "I signed their paper," she said. "But I kept copies of everything. The NDA, the settlement agreement, the letters they sent. I do not know why. Maybe I hoped someday someone would care." She handed me the folder, and I opened it carefully, scanning documents that confirmed everything she had said. Standard tactics for silencing victims. Legal language designed to intimidate. Payments structured to look like generosity while buying permanent silence. But there was something else, something Rosa had not mentioned. A handwritten note in the margin of her copy of the NDA. She had written a date and a single sentence, the night before he died. I looked up at her, and she nodded, understanding my unspoken question. The night before the collapse, Miguel could not sleep. He sat at this kitchen table until 2 in the morning. I asked him what was wrong. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. He said, "Rosa, the steel they are using, it is not right. I told them. I wrote reports. Nobody listens. They care about money, not safety. Something bad is going to happen. I can feel it." "I told him to quit," Rosa continued. "Find another job. He said we needed the insurance, the pension. He said he would try one more time to make them listen. The next morning he kissed me goodbye and went to work. That was the last time." Her eyes met mine, and in them I saw not just grief, but anger, banked and burning after 5 years of enforced silence. "Your father knew." Miguel told his supervisors, and they told Victor Cole. He knew the bridge was dangerous, and he let my husband walk onto it anyway. That is not an accident. That is murder with paperwork. The word hung in the air between us. Murder. She was right. There was no other word for what my father had done. I reached across and took Rosa's weathered hands in mine. "I have evidence. Financial records proving the fraud. Marcus can testify about the material substitutions. And now I have your story. What Miguel knew. What they paid to bury. Rosa, I cannot bring Miguel back. I cannot undo 5 years of silence. But I can make them answer for what they did. If you are willing to testify, to break the NDA, I will make sure you are protected." She looked at me for a long moment, tears streaming down her face, but something else burning in her eyes now, something that looked like fire. "For 5 years I have lit candles and prayed for justice. Maybe God sent you instead of an angel. Tell me what I need to do." Before I could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID made my blood run cold. Victor Cole. I answered, and my father's voice came through the speaker, cold and controlled, exactly as I remembered. Marin, we need to talk about what you are doing. I know you have been meeting with people, asking questions. I know about the engineer. I know about the widow. You think you are building something, but you are digging your own grave. When the court declares you incompetent, everything you own becomes family property. Your bank accounts, your apartment, your little files, everything, Marin, including the things you are trying so hard to hide. I kept my voice steady, matching his ice with my own. Is that a confession, Father? You just admitted you know about the files. You just admitted this is not about my well-being. Thank you for clarifying your motives. His pause was brief but telling. He had said too much, and he knew it. Do not be clever, Marin. You are not equipped for this. The line went dead. I lowered my phone and looked at Marcus and Rosa. He just confirmed everything. This was never about protecting me. It is about silencing me. Rosa straightened in her chair, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. What will you do? I thought of Miguel, Jerome, and David. I thought of the families paid to forget. I thought of the truth buried under legal documents and threats. What he never expected, I said. I will stop being silent. 1 week before the hearing, Diane's conference table disappeared under stacks of documents, folders, and sticky notes in 3 different colors. The Portland skyline glowed orange through the windows as the sun set, but neither of us had noticed the passing hours. We had been working since early morning, building our case piece by piece, preparing for a battle that would determine not just my freedom, but my father's fate. A whiteboard on the wall displayed our timeline, our witness list, our evidence inventory. Boxes of documents lined the walls, 4 years of preparation compressed into 7 days. Diane sat at the head of the table, reading glasses perched on her nose, a pen moving constantly across legal pads. I sat across from her, laptop open, cross-referencing files and preparing summaries. The work was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. Every document we organized was another weapon in our arsenal. Every piece of evidence was another brick in the wall we were building around my father's crimes. We have financial records, engineering testimony, and a victim statement, Diane said, reviewing our progress. The hard drive contents have been authenticated by a forensic computer expert. Your employment history, psychological evaluation, and credit reports all demonstrate clear competence. She looked up at me. On paper, their conservatorship case is laughable. But this was never about paper, I replied. She nodded slowly. No, it was not. And that brings us to the decision you need to make. She stood and walked to the whiteboard, drawing 2 paths with quick, decisive strokes. Path A is defense only, she said, pointing to the first line. We prove you are competent, dismiss the petition, and keep the criminal evidence private. You win the conservatorship case and walk away with your life intact. Your father never faces consequences, but you are free. She pointed to the second line. Path B is full exposure. We submit the evidence to the court record, trigger a criminal investigation, and destroy Cole Construction. You win the conservatorship case and your father goes to prison. But everything becomes public. Your family name, your history, your role in bringing them down. There is no walking away quietly. I stared at the 2 paths, understanding the weight of the choice before me. Path A was safer. I could protect myself, maintain my privacy, rebuild my life without the spotlight of a criminal investigation. But it meant letting my father walk free. It meant Miguel, Jerome, and David would remain accidents in the public record, their deaths unrevenged, their families' silence permanent. It meant Rosa would keep her $50,000 and her shame, and Marcus would keep fighting alone. Path B was war. Total, public, irreversible war. If I chose this path, I would destroy my family completely. My father would face prison. My mother would face ruin. My name would appear in headlines, in court documents, in the historical record of corporate crime. There would be no going back to anonymity, no pretending the Cole family was anything other than what we were. But justice would be served. The truth would be told. and the dead would finally have their names spoken by someone other than the people who loved them. I did not survive 4 years of silence to win quietly, I said. Rosa lost her husband. Marcus lost his career and his health. 3 men lost their lives. If I choose safety now, I am no different from everyone else who looked away. Diane nodded, something like approval flickering in her eyes. Then we build a case so airtight, they cannot spin their way out. She began outlining our witness strategy. Janet Morrison, my supervisor at the accounting firm, would testify first. 20 years in the field, impeccable reputation, direct knowledge of my professional competence. She would paint a picture of a capable, reliable, exceptional employee, the opposite of the unstable daughter my parents had described. Dr. Patricia Huang, a clinical psychologist from Portland State, would testify next. She had conducted a legitimate evaluation, 8 hours of interviews and standardized testing, and her conclusions directly contradicted the fraudulent assessment my parents had submitted. No emotional instability, she would say. No cognitive impairment. Above-average resilience, clear judgment, appropriate emotional regulation. The polar opposite of everything Gerald Hoyt would claim. Marcus would testify about the material substitutions, the ignored warnings, the cover-up he had witnessed from the inside. His testimony was emotional, and Gerald would try to paint him as a disgruntled former employee, but his scars spoke louder than any cross-examination could dismiss. And Rosa would testify about